Once we start to move in a direction, let's just say that beings who do not have subconscious minds, masterful beings, they're not superior to us like people are taught on Earth, but they're far more advanced and awake than people on Earth. So they have a certain respect for people in the sense that they understand what happened to us, how we got to be here. They also know, as I do, in order for us to recover all that we were made to forget, in order for us to have freedom in the universe, we also have to have the wisdom awakened to be able to know how to utilize what we imagine, what we see, what we choose to focus our imagination on. There's never been anything wrong with anything that's in life, like sex or marriage or kids or any of that, except people on Earth are not living consciously. So they're just reacting to things for the most part. They're not really fully consciously aware of who they're with, who they get attracted to. All of that stuff is pretty much kind of subconscious for people on Earth, and that's not the right way. There's nothing wrong with any of it. It's just that people are locked into or trapped into living life without being really aware of how they got to be here. So we wake that up whenever we can, like you're doing right now. You three are co-creating your way back home. And this is done while your body's alive on Earth. It isn't one of these things where your body's got to die and you got to go to heaven. That's an illusion. That's kind of for infancy, for childish natures of beings. Because then once they're saved, or they think they are, they don't do anything to change. They just don't. So they just sit through the rest of their life not changing. Now this is the way Earth is. It is not the way most planets are. If the governments in this world, motivated by beings from beyond this world, announce the truth about what they have known about extraterrestrials coming here, they've met with, the classified system, Earth would literally change within a year. I mean, it would be completely transformed. Probably less time than that. Because then we could invite them to come and help do things we cannot do on our own. Technologically, spiritually, in many ways. The biggest problem with this is the way people are brainwashed, the way they're programmed to believe and to fight with others who believe differently. That's the biggest problem with people on Earth, because all of that is based on fear. If they believe they're saved, it placates their fear. But they don't change, they don't grow, they don't think they have to. This is the way governments and religions have kept people controlled. This kind of control was not created originally on Earth. It was brought here, just like all of us. And if you know that, you're already way ahead of the rest of mankind on Earth, because you're waking up to the truth. And when you do that, you can actually make conscious choices to move forward. And this is what you're doing. A little here, a little there. You get more courage, you take another step. It's the same for me or Pari or anyone. But Earth is not, in any stretch of the imagination, a normal planet. It is not. All the things you see in nature, the way animals treat each other, the way people treat animals, is not natural. So the first thing I can share with all of you about real truth is that it's not normal. Down deep, every one of us knows it's not, because we're Atmas. People just can't bring it to the conscious surface why it's the way it is or how they had a part in creating it the way it is. Because once we can accept responsibility on a cosmic level for our part in what we call good and evil, then we can work with vast numbers of beings to change the way things are, even on Earth. And until we accept that responsibility, we cannot become co-creators with the Source. So it looks to us when we go on these journeys, and it doesn't judge us, but it does look and see if we're ready to take a next step. And if we are, it will inspire us to take a next step. provide a certain protection because it is looking to get more beings back across that border, up above the void, back home, and co-creating new ways of doing things in the Hue Expansion Ray Academy, above Satnam's realm, or in Satnam's realm for that matter, because there's no negative nature there. That's why that barrier, the void between the upper and lower worlds, was put there. By who? Us. By you. And every one of us as Atmas. Because we, as Atmas, have always existed in that form before the lower worlds of time and space were even built. That's how ancient we are. Beyond the understanding of billions or trillions of years. The places that exist above the void are still permanent, unchanging places. In other words, they don't get destroyed and then get built and then people get born there and then die. None of that happens. So what we really are has never died, never once. Bodies, yes. And if we're attached to bodies, then we think we're losing something we are. Of course, that's not true. Bodies are a type of very sophisticated biological machine. And people think they run themselves, bodies, They don't. They get their energy to run from you. Think about how masterful it must take, what it must be, to run a body as complex as a human system. So efficiently you can run it for 100 years and it'll grow old and die out from under you. But think about how complex that is and what it takes to be able to do that. People on Earth are doing it unconsciously, not consciously. That's the problem with Earth. People on Earth are not very conscious about anything. If you had been brought up to see beyond the planet Earth, walking around in the streets, sitting in a restaurant with your friends, you could close your eyes and see yourself on Nextsalem or another planet or in Satnam's realm, and you guys could talk about it at lunch. See, that's a normal planet. You could go to a spaceport and go on a trip for the weekend across the Milky Way galaxy to another planet with your children in exchange programs. That's normal. Just for the physical universe. Beings that do that are not unconscious like people on Earth. Yes, they have bodies, they have families, they go here, they go there, but they also know what they are that is not a body, and they're aware of it. That is the significant difference between an awake planet and one that is suffering from a very terrible amnesia that was put on them without their permission at one point or another. There's two levels of responsibility. One, we accept our own part for creating the failed experiment of good and evil because we were all part of it. Can't hide from it, can't run from it forever. Sooner or later that will catch up with us. And we have to wake up to this fact. We've always known it, even though it's suppressed in most people because they're afraid to remember their responsibility or they feel guilty down deep for something they did 1 billion years ago. That's what Maya or illusion is. The compulsive need to suffer to pay for what you think you did wrong. This is not the way the true universe actually works. There is no God up there punishing people with thousands and millions of lifetimes because they need to pay back what they did that was bad. That's a method that tyrants use to trap people emotionally and mentally, to get them stuck on Earth, revolving around life after life, afraid to remember their responsibility in the multidimensional creation as a co-creator with the Source. So once you begin to wake up to what our purpose really is, that age-old question that people have had forever, why do I exist? Many people ask this question on Earth subconsciously, but it's not conscious in them. They don't actually ask the question fully aware. So they never get a fully aware answer in return from the hue. And the reason is the hue only responds directly to what we put into it. So if we're aware of what the Atma plane looks like, at least some parts of it, where Satnam is, above the void, where there's no negative nature, then we can visualize that, and the hue, the omnipresent power, will take us there. It's the same power that runs spacecraft that can go faster than the speed of light or go through interdimensional doorways. It's the same power which we ride on as Atmas. The difference is, as Atmas, we're riding on the pure energy that supports, that is behind galaxies and planets and spaceships. But they derive their power source from the same energy. And it's not nuclear and it's not atomic. It does not observe the laws of physics. It doesn't have any DNA or molecules or atoms. What makes up the spherical being we are has no atomic structure, as in physics in the lower worlds. It is not made of molecules or atoms, but it looks like it's structured like an atom, because all things in the lower worlds are patterned after what we are, the Atma. It's very important to know this because it will propel you forward. And it will continue to propel you forward, onward and upward. It's quite natural after a time, once you cross paths with the first sound behind creation. The missing word in certain religious books is not a printed word. It is a sound. And that sound is a telepathic medium for all beings, all masters, all Purushas, all governors, all worlds, all galaxies, all the dimensions, Satnam, Agam Purusha, right to the source, even to the silent mentors themselves. So we will go on this journey, the few of us. I should share with you, Pari probably already has. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pari, but one area that I've been hesitant to go into is looking into primary implants for people. The reason isn't because of not being able to do it. It's because people aren't ready. They think they are. But most people want to take an easy way, a quick, dirty, quick kind of thing, and then instant enlightenment. The problem with that is, if it was given to you without you actually waking up to it and being responsible for co-creating waking it up, then you would lose it in a night. The energy going through your subconscious would twist that hue into both positive and negative, and on a higher level, that freedom, that mastery, if it's given to you, you'd lose it. Because there's no personal responsibility. We have to keep that by maintaining how we choose to focus our ability to see into the multiverse. We don't want to see things in a negative way or with fear. We don't want to be in fear of present or the future, because those are all subconscious influences that are negative. The outcomes can only be negative. So on Earth, most people experience a good life and a bad life, right? You have love for your family and everything's fine there, and then you have fear of the future, because the world and its people, politics and religions, and the internet propel or compel people to do both, positive and negative, every single day of their life. And that creates opposing forces in consciousness. And that grounds the one energy that's coming through it that is not divided into two channels, and they get grounded into the earth. So it makes it very tough for people to have enough energy to get up out of their body and go off in the universe and remember. So when we cross paths with the you and we start working in these journeys, you start to gather a certain kind of very rare, I don't want to say rare, a very precious type of energy around you. And it moves you onward and upward. You get a kind of a guidance. The master teachers that I work with and that work with me are extremely careful about how much they'll give to any one person, Wave a magic wand, set you free, you're enlightened, there you go, you're all free. It doesn't work like that. Everybody on earth has been trying that forever, for millions of years, not just thousands, and it hasn't worked. Doesn't get them out of here. There is no way to cheat the source behind all life and take a shortcut to mastery. Mastery is not so complicated or impossible to achieve as people are brainwashed to incorrectly believe on earth. We've all had it before and lost it. So it's not new to us. Most people are hesitant to take up the responsibility of being a master Atma, a co-creator with the source, because of fear of failure. And it goes back billions of years, long before you were ever implanted or trapped or killed or eaten or put in a body on earth. There's more to recovering all those higher faculties than just being free of implants. That's just part of it. Those are steps along the way. Secondary implants go, it gives you more intelligence and more power and more awareness and more maturity to take further steps against all odds. It begins to wake up in a person the ability to see things beyond earth. At first, it's important to have guides who can show you things you cannot see for yourself because of subconscious fear. And then once that's established, you can begin, a little bit at a time, to work on seeing things for yourself. For instance, if we go on this journey and what we see and what we do, you will have a visual representation in your own being, a co-creative direct experience with what it is you can see. And you can go to wherever that is later and go and adventure out in different directions. We could land in Satnam's palatial estate, or by one of the fountains, or on the beach. And you can look in any direction above the void. And you'll just go naturally to where it's best for you to go. And then there's much to explore there, much to bring back to the consciousness you have on earth, because that consciousness on earth, that brain and body never learned any of this at all. None of it. It's not the body and brain you have on earth that's the intelligence. It is you. And you're running a brain and body, not the other way around. Bodies are like a car. It doesn't do anything. It sits there, doesn't even live, doesn't even run until a being gets in and turns the key. Turning the key is sending an energy through the pineal gland in the center of the brain, and you start running the nervous system. It starts breathing, it gets up, it walks around. Bodies do not run on their own without an Atma directly running it. This is the way it really is. Now, on many normal worlds beyond Earth, people understand this. As advanced and in paradisical nature as these worlds are compared to Earth, many of those beings were not returning across the void either. This is all changed out in space amongst the stars. That is what the Series Agenda book represents. A doorway to how it's changing out there now, in ways that has never changed this way before in hundreds of billions of years. This means we now have the opportunity to co-create, fixing what we never got right in the beginning. The old failed experiment of good and evil. What a trap. Looked good on paper. We all thought it would work out just fine. But it worked out so well that this good and evil thing trapped beings and bodies in the lower worlds, not just on Earth, the astral, causal, mental, and etheric planes as well. These places where people have their heavens that they believe in are not permanent places. They are temporary places, and eventually people are compelled to leave such places and come back here in order to gain mastery, to be a responsible co-creator with the Source. The Source itself is not interested in having a bunch of immature brat people on Earth who just believe something but have not earned or put any effort in at all to achieve wisdom, and then go bring them to some heaven where they would just destroy the place in an hour with their negative thoughts and feelings and lack of maturity. and experience. So direct experience is incredibly important. It has to come after faith and belief, and to go into it, we have to literally leap into the hue. Now, people, this is not hard to leap into the hue. People do it every night. When you put your body to sleep, you're leaping into the hue. You're out of your body. The problem is with people on earth, because of subconscious fear, they do not generally bring back much of what they do when they're out of their body. They're out every night. But where are you going? What are you doing? If you don't get brought up as a child to exercise these higher faculties, they remain dormant, sleeping amnesia, or forgotten. These are higher faculties, like those teardrops in all the layers of our being. Each one is an individual type of faculty or storage device. And they're all linked. Every layer of the colors in the Atma are linked to the different dimensions. So we already have stored within us the ability to circumnavigate, meaning travel around the multidimensional universe. In ships, that's a lot of fun. If you travel in a spaceship often enough, it's going to be pretty boring. It's going to be like riding a bus, and eventually you get tired of it. Atmas are not limited to what spacecraft are limited to. Spacecraft that can travel across the galaxy and come to Earth, or even go to other galaxies, cannot travel into the astral plane even. You have to go out of your body and join your astral body and go play in spaceships there, because they're made of a different time rate of matter. I think the only beings I know of that were capable of traveling between major divisions in a craft were the Sayrays long ago. They could move a craft from here to the astral plane and back to the physical, and all through the parallel dimensions. To my knowledge, the Oceanians can do it, but they don't usually do it with their spectrum ships. And these are the most advanced ships there are in the physical universe. Instead, they just go out of their body and go there. It's much easier. So this is what our potential is. You imagine someone you love and respect, you're grateful they're in your life. It just needs to be something that makes you smile inside. That's all. It can be anything. A beautiful scene, a waterfall, an ocean, a hummingbird, a flock of birds flying overhead, a baby's smile, a kitty cat playfully playing on the ground. Anything that's constructive, that is not destructive, opens the doorway in the pineal gland. We close our eyes because it's natural for us to choose to shut down that input from the Earth's atmosphere into our eyes and into our energy field. We shut that off. Same thing you do when you put the body to sleep at night. Close your eyes, and as natural as breathing, you go into this state of sleep. You, the real being, is not asleep or unconscious. Ever. The Atma does not sleep, does not need to sleep, does not get fatigued. Working with bodies, well, bodies do. Bodies have to be recharged. That's why you go to sleep at night, to recharge it. It's like recharging a battery in a car. Of course, it's different than a car, an automobile, because Atmas do not have a battery in the being, like a stored energy center. They are plugged into the omnipresent power at all times. And we draw our energy from the one power. And that one power is not divisible. It cannot be broken up into parts. It is one living power. The whole universe is supported by that one living power. Atmas are supported by it. Atmas are made of it. Planets and moons and suns and stars and spaceships are not made of the hue. They're made of secondary matter, molecules, atoms, and things like that. But what we are is not made of the lower worlds of time and space. Cannot be destroyed. Can certainly suffer. Yeah, I mean, you can be in billions of lifetimes and go, what the hell happened? You know, you don't remember anything. You're on a planet like Earth bumping into each other and going, what? How did all these different races get on one planet? Well, there is an answer to that age-old question. People in theory make up stuff because they have no other choice. They teach it in universities. It's just theory. All these races somehow evolved all their different characteristics on Earth in one atmosphere, on one planet, with one dead moon and one sun. That is impossible. All the different races of human types and genomes and all that that are represented on Earth are representative of whole races that exist out among the stars. Whole planetary systems that are just Japanese, or just black people, or African American, or Caucasian, or Nordics. If you catch my drift, then you begin to understand how ancient humans are. They were around before the Earth could even support life. So this was not a new development that happened, at the beginning of this planet in its primordial swamps, and little amoebas became fish, and then they started walking on their fins, and then they started standing upright, then they became dinosaurs, and then they devolved into humans. No. Those types of creatures were imported to Earth from other worlds where they evolved. It was an experiment. And when the genetic experiment of dinosaurs, these monstrous creatures, eating each other and eating the Earth, they would have eaten themselves to death. Even the vegetarians would have eaten all the plant and flora and fauna, and they would have died anyway. So they were done away with. The bodies. And that's about when Earth, people like human beings and other races came to this planet 65 million years ago. Now think about this. Where is all that history in your life? Your history. Where is it? That's just Earth and solar system history going back 65 million years. What about galactic history? The when you look out in space and everybody sees all these planets and galaxies and stars and they go, ooh, is there life out there? What? They're looking out of Earth's atmosphere at all of that and wondering if there's life out there. The beings out there don't just look back on Earth and wonder if there's life here. They know there is. They're not looking out there dumbed down, living in theory, in belief systems that provide no practical direct experience. No one can get free from Maya or illusion in the lower worlds without direct experience. They have to leap beyond faith sooner or later. So the best faith and belief systems would be those that have something to do with direct experience. Or they're just entertaining people in a way. And no one gets free to go to some called heaven unless they can be trusted to be responsible if they're there. It just works this way. It's common sense. There is a man and a woman from the Galactic Alliance standing beside or above each one of you. Each one of us, all 5 of us actually. This is not an astral body that they show you. It is a pure projection of a pure form that looks human. It has no molecules, no DNA, but it looks human. You can touch it. But it is really a projection of the hue from one of the faculties that surround the core of our being. That is a white core, just like the source itself. And then we draw from the omnipresent power and we mock up and project this body. We've all been able to do this. So when you're near the ceiling, just daydreaming, looking down what it would be like to see your body there, same thing as being able to imagine going to a store. You have to first visualize it. This does not mean you're making it up in your brain. That's all wrong. It means you're actually seeing it as the Atma and imparting this ability to see it to the brain and body. So your brain and body thinks it's doing it. This is not correct. Not at all. There's not going to be any useful psychiatry and psychology in a large sense or a deeper sense until beings understand where some of these problems come from that are not in the physical body, like in the astral plane where all emotion comes from. If they understood this, they could cure people. So now, instead, They give people what they call symptom-suppressing drugs with side effects. And maybe that's all that they can do at this point. Some of it helps people, but doesn't really cure much. And this is true of medical science on Earth as well. People mean well, they're trained to be bright in colleges and universities, but they are not taught how to cure anything. It's a conflict of interest with the way businesses work on Earth. And yet there are cures or solutions to all problems energetically. Everything is frequency. If you know the right frequencies and you can project them at a problem, you can get rid of problems or change them. In the being we are as Atmas, we have this awareness. It may not be awake in you, but it is there. Which means you had it long ago and lost it, or had it suppressed, or decided to forget it, whatever. But it is not lost, and it is not destroyed. And it does need to be recovered in order to move forward or upward and onward. You're by the ceiling, looking down on your body. When I begin to send out the hue, Turelian, Satnam, Etan, Din, Pelham, Ramu, Dantiam, Lamtiam, Shantil, Tonaltial, Galactic Alliance people, master teachers, many of whom I never have time to describe for you on these journeys that are with us, that teach in the U Expansion Ray Academy, for instance. They come from all over the galaxy, even from other dimensions below the void, some from above the void. This is normal for them. So when we mix it up with them, it rubs off on us because the U flows through them and flows through us. And as it does this, we begin to pick up on things we've been terrified to remember or have long ago decided to forget, and we begin to recover. So I will send out the hue, but first, visualize yourself hovering near the ceiling. You are a spherical being. There is a spherical being to the left and to right of you, a male and a female. And they have body forms there showing you about 6 feet tall in general, human-like, very perfect in the sense that they're perfectly handsome or beautiful. But so are you. The same way, you show them the same original prototype, like Satnam shows us of an original first prototype. It's not a physical body that he shows us, but it looks like it is. It's about 36 years old, older than time and space. When we get up there, we're going to meet him, and then we're going to go a little further. So first realize that you are, because if you have any secondary implants left, they're stopped or turned off. The primary implant is turned off. For some of you anyway, I don't know if all of you have had secondary implants removed, but if you have, that's good because it helps you gain greater IQ and a greater momentum and a greater courage to step further forward. Basically, it puts you in a position to gain mastery over primary anything, any negative nature, because our true nature has no negative nature in it. All that good and bad stuff is in the lower energies of time and space, in the energy field that surrounds the outside of the Atma, not in it. That means there has never ever been a negative nature in you. It's all external. It's the images of things distorted subconsciously that you look through to see the universe and don't see it correctly. That's what implants are. That's what the subconscious mind does. And right now, all of you do not have a truly subconscious mind anymore. You've already crossed that threshold. You're already awake as an Atma. It doesn't mean your life's perfect or that everything's masterful around you, but you're getting the assistance that most people only dream of getting. How many lives did it take you to cross paths with the hue? All I did before being prepared for this work is put this out into the public so you could find it. That's what the books were written for. That's what the screenplays for feature films were written for. Talking books that we'll be doing, all of that is done for that purpose. To give people a way to cross paths with the hue. Because when you do that, it's one way. There's no going backwards. The reason we do this is to connect a doorway in the omnipresent power. It vibrates on different levels of frequency. There's the whole physical universe one with 144 parallel dimensional levels, each with a separate tone. Then there's the astral plane, the next major division in the multiverse, and it has its own level. So we're connecting to all these levels and opening a doorway through them, creating a vortex, a portal through which we can travel to get to the void, which has no negative nature. It is above the etheric plane, and to get to Satnam Drome and higher. If we do not imagine or create this with others along the way, we go nowhere. You get no place. We are meant to be trusted by the source to create our own way around. Naturally, we want to do this without fear of any kind, so that when we create something, it just produces constructive, uplifting effects in life. We're meant to be trusted custodians and caretakers of things like planets, like Earth, and animals or mammals, and sea life. These have Atmas running them. We're meant to be examples for them, not destroyers of them. So you see, when people create that kind of unconscious living and misuse life on earth and think they're just good people, they're creating a repetition of incarnations because they're not behaving properly. There's a form of sadistic behavior running through the undercurrent of the way people are with each other and with life on earth. And it needs to go. That's being motivated by subconscious fear, that's all. People can change, even the way their bodies are run, by changing consciousness. This is what most people are terrified to do. They really are. Just like all of you were in the beginning. You never knew what to expect. But out here, in the hue, without the negative effects of the atmosphere of Earth, we are free from such influences. So you find yourself in space, in a circle of beings around Ambassador Turellian. This being is not an ambassador to Earth per se. He is an ambassador from the Seres to the Galactic Alliance. He's also an ambassador from the Seres to the Zientranamus people who run the other half of the galaxy. I never got into this with all you people before, but this guy gets around. The mentors, the trainers, or the master teachers of the Seres are the silent mentors. Now, these beings run the entire mechanics of creation, from the top to the bottom and everything in between. To have the privilege even walking near one would have to be set up very carefully so it doesn't fry you to a crisp. These are beings that run the explosions on suns, galaxies turning on axes, doorways between dimensions. They monitor and manage the omnipresent living power. They don't run it. They're so evolved they can co-create vast volumes of it through themselves to carry out a certain mission. And they have no limitations whatsoever. None. So when we rub shoulders with such beings, even Turellian, who he's training to be a silent mentor, might be one already, but they're silent mentors, so you really wouldn't be told that if he was one. That isn't their interest. We have these master teachers, people, beings like us, who have achieved a certain level of awakening as Atmas, fully aware of themselves and their responsibilities to co-create with Source. So they're called master teachers. Oddly enough, they do not refer to themselves that way. Students refer to them that way. See the difference? For them to serve all life in the way they are now, because of the hue expansion ray that was brought into the lower worlds that didn't exist before, they can do more for students now than they ever could before. Things have changed, and changed in such a way that they cannot be reversed. So out here in space, you look at this space around us and it's white golden light everywhere. It has a humming sound to it, like gentle thunder, but no lightning. This is the sound the physical universe radiates. A general universal sound. And there are finer tones of it through all 144 parallel dimensions before we even get to this barrier between the astral plane and the physical. It's like a mini void, and you have to cross it. None of this is new to you. Back in the beginning, we all helped create this together collectively as the source. Individuals operating collectively as the source. Because that's the true supreme being. And it has a presence and a location. But it isn't a guy or a girl on a throne somewhere with a big staff dictating things to the minions it owns like souls. That is not how it works. We are not meant actually to pray to such sources of energy. We are meant to go there and experience it directly, which terrifies most people on earth. They pray to something they're terrified to actually meet. And the reason for that is simple. If they met it face to face, all the negative stuff that's still in them would be brought to the surface. They'd have to face the truth. And then they would have to get rid of that stuff, wouldn't they? So one of the reasons people are terrified to know who they are and what their purpose in existence is really all about. We have and always have been meant to be trustworthy co-creators with the source. Out here in space, around Turelian, the energy that's brought here from Satnam that surrounds us is of higher nature of the hue than that which is normally in space. And that's pure hue too. All that black area that isn't really black, that's vast and little tiny galaxies float in this big vastness, that's divine spirit right there. People don't have any idea that's what it is. They know this divine spirit thing they talk about is conscious in some way, but not like they are. It's universal. It's a living energy, and it does not call itself divine spirit either. That's an earth term, and that's only on earth where that's even talked about in that way. So out in the greater God beyond earth, it's not talked about the way people do in the world's faiths and beliefs and politics. It's quite different. There's no negative nature in the hue in space. You can't put or record anything negative into it. It just disappears, dissipates. That's the hue. It does not have negative nature, and you can't put any into it. As Atma's out here, any subconscious stuff you have going back on Earth is turned off by the man and woman standing beside you. Some of them are Galactic Alliance personnel who are also considered to be very advanced master teachers, not only adept in technology, but way beyond the intelligence level of an Earth human. And they don't have subconscious minds. Their governments would never tolerate such things amongst citizens. No. Any inkling of a subconscious anything would be gotten rid of at childbirth or even later in the years. They would never allow a person to grow up with something like that. So you see, we have stuff to let go of that we don't need and don't want, and have nothing to do with our happiness whatsoever. Fear is an artificially created and implanted negative emotion. It is not a natural human characteristic. Turelian's 18 feet tall because he shows us how he was, how his race was, when they immortalized their bodies over 1 billion Earth years ago. He's telling you this now. He's standing there with his thumbs up, closed fists, a brighter golden light around him. It's coming down from Satnam. He's standing up in space, high up above Eden and Din, and there's the big spherical Atma that is Ambassador Turelian, that is his body. And there's Pelham out in space, and Ramu towards the Earth, and all of us in a circle, and beings, this man and woman standing beside you, and other master teachers standing between us and the next person. The ships are not here. This is not a secondary implant removal journey. But the beings who come off those ships are. They just simply projected from being stationed on the Emerald Star Cruiser in the ice rings that make up the planet Saturn. So it's easy for them to come here, either in ships or as Atmas, and do the work they're doing with us. They have their body asleep back on that craft. The rest of their fellows are running around doing their work, but there's a couple here and there and elsewhere in these lounges with their eyes closed, helping us on these journeys. This means they're keeping any subconscious negative nature turned off for your benefit. This is what they can do. It's quite effortless for them. It's not hard at all. But the reason for that is because they don't have subconscious minds. So what would it be like if you had no subconscious anything? What would you be like on earth if you had no subconscious mind? There isn't even a way for you to reflect on understanding what you would be like, because it's so alien to the conditioning that people have been put through. And I don't just mean before you came to this life, long before that as well. So the couple that stands beside each one of you, a male and female, a couple, always a couple. Master teachers can work singly like Ramu or Pelham, or myself, or, but it's better to work dealing with subconscious things with a couple, because the couples that work with us have a complete balance between the positive and negative, the male and female, within themselves and with each other. So the hue comes through them and comes through us to get us back into an understanding of what this is to be like, to be normal, without fear, misdirecting things. Etta and Din are adorable creatures. They're really Atmas like us, running these Dren bodies, flying around with their tails glowing. They're showing us body forms that look just like the ones they have on planet Oceania, where Master Pelham comes from. A real world on the other side of our galaxy, in the third higher parallel dimension. Is not even in the, if you went from Earth in a ship, from the Earth straight out into space, without changing your molecular time rate of the craft, you would come to a planet where Oceania is. It wouldn't even look the same, because it's in a slightly higher parallel dimension. The antigravitic drives can raise their molecular time rate up and become part of that dimension and keep flying in the physical universe. So when you look out in space and see all of those billions of stars, those beings that work and live and move and have their being out there started coming to this Earth probably after World War II ended, more than before, because of the explosion of nuclear devices in our own atmosphere. That was a big red flag for anybody that's conscious in the universe. That drew negative attention to this planet, because nobody uses devices that are only destructive, that are sane, anywhere in the universe. Earth is not a planet of sane people. Not yet, because they're not awake. They're not working on all thrusters. So they can't make the best decisions. That's why I personally rely on Satnam to fill up the slack. Whenever I make a decision and I want it to be better than I can make by myself, I just turn it over. Because he's going to look down objectively from above the void without any negative nature and make better, proper decisions than I can make by myself. It's a hard thing to get across to people how this works. This is what people call surrender. But surrender is a negative term, because it means in your subconscious you're surrendering to a tyrant who forces you to do their will against your own will. I would say more it's like trusting in higher beings to help you become masterful, because they are operating in a way that wouldn't make the mistakes we make. Now you could call it surrender, but I'd say it's more like, it's not submissive, and you're not a doormat. The beings I know out there, including Satnam, would not tolerate you worshiping them. You just see them on a big throne up there sitting, and you'd be self-delusional. You wouldn't be able to get any real secrets that way. They'll manifest what you imagine toward them. So you don't want to putting them on a pedestal and imagining them as a god and praying to them. they'll walk away from you. Respect is really what divine love is. All you do is respect them and your own potential that you see in them. They manifest and show us what our potential is. This is how they work. So direct experience with them is essential. When you look up above Satnam, who's hovering up in space, in the white golden light, you see a vortex above him that was created when we sent out the hues. I did not do this by myself. There are wonderful beings I trust with my life that do this with me and I with them. So the vortex is created for one purpose: to bypass the lower worlds of time and space. They're wonderful, astral, causal, mental, and all the planes and the jewels and the sparkly crystals and the bright lights and all the stuff. But it can be very distracting and mindlessly entertaining, which it has been for most beings for billions of years. So we want to avoid wasting time going into all those levels until you're masterful enough to know how to deal with those levels and not be caught in them. See, because your own higher selves are caught in them right now to some degree. You are all running a body on the astral, causal, mental, and etheric planes, each different division, higher molecular time rate, still in the hue but in the lower worlds, made and constructed out of a uniform positive and negative stream. Supposed to be creating it as a unified form, like the yin-yang symbol, two teardrops circling around each other, one black, one white, positive, negative, with a golden hue around it, so that it manifests things without creating repercussions, negative repercussions in space-time. When people's consciousness is split, they create positive on one side and negative on another, and these are opposing forces. That's not the way they're supposed to work. And when we do that, we divide our consciousness in half. So up here in space, in this pure hue, your consciousness is not divided in half. It is whole. We are spherical Atmas. Whatever mastery you have to work on as far as the subconscious mind, primary implant, that stuff is put aside for this journey, for your benefit. There's not enough money in the universe to pay for what's being given to you here. It's ridiculous because the beings we work with don't even use it. None of them that I know of. And that's mostly what's outside of Earth. So Earth has a lot of changing to go through. It has to go through it in a way that makes sense, so people aren't rioting in the streets and all that kind of silly stuff. People with fear will do destructive things when it's triggered. This is the reason people are not being picked up by spaceships all over the planet, because it would be a waste of time to do that for people without preparation. They would be worshiping the beings that picked them up. They would appear like angels to people on Earth, because their energy is so much freer and higher than ours, even in the physical forms they have. So it'd be very uplifting to be in their presence. But they're just normal to themselves, you see my point? So people need this preparation. There is a oval, golden, white sphere of light, a little brighter than the hue in space, that is surrounding us. And it's being manifested through Ambassador Torellian's fists, with his thumbs upward. Just a gesture to show you that it's constructive and it's going upward. Now, he serves voluntarily as a central focus point for these journeys. It could be someone else. Satnam could stand there, but he's got other things to do. Torellian fits this perfectly. So this energy surrounding us is kind of like the hull of a spaceship around us. And we're going to move as a group collectively, including over 100 master teachers that are here with us. Not just a couple beside each of you and each of us, but others. This works into the law of economy, which means they go with us because it's better they go with us in this way directly to teach or do a session of teaching in the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. They have lives and bodies in the other planes and other planets. Wives and all kinds of things. Some are ambassadors. Some drive huge 10-mile-long spacecraft. But they also teach there. And this has been especially true in the last 10 years, since more beings have been joining teaching there, because it is the one place we can go to create with others new ways of doing things, to change the way things are into something much better, something that has never existed before. If you retire the old failed experiment of good and evil, it has to be replaced with something that actually works. It has to be replaced with something that actually removes or eventually gets rid of a subconscious mind, implants and everything else that's distorted. And it has to do that by imparting a certain wisdom that comes from above the void to us, so that we have the wisdom to know how to keep it once we have awakened it. That's what these journeys are for. As we're moving upward in this oval golden white light, you can see space all around us. You can see the Earth with its polar ice caps, the barren moon, meteor cratered, no atmosphere. Circles the orbits the planet but doesn't turn on its axis at all. The sun, a single sun, and billions of stars in our galaxy. We're moving up above that galaxy until it appears to dwindle below us, and we're up in this vast void. It's not a void, but this vast golden white light that appears black to human eyes on Earth when they see us, a composite image of outer space, of galaxies. You're actually seeing all that color because it's part of infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays. They're composited together so that you can see what they really look like as an Atma. Now on Earth they can do this and composite these different frequencies because you wouldn't really see all those colors with physical eyes from Earth. If you begin to understand this, then you can understand how constructive seeing galaxies and things like they really are is for people on Earth without they don't even realize it. Not yet. So as we're moving upward, you begin to see Andromeda, the galaxy nearest neighbor, a little bigger than ours. It's also a spiral galaxy. And then there's others off in the distance, everywhere around us in every direction. And then we shot upward. And you look up and you see this vortex we're entering. And Satnam, he had his hand on his chest, and he just puts his hand upward and he moves up through that opening. There is an Atma, a very bright, big sphere of light hovering above this form he's showing you. And so we are moving up with Tyrellian straight up like people inside a spaceship in the sound that's changing from this kind of rumbling, humming sound into a sound of water crashing on a beach, into the sound of a brook running down some stones, to the sound of bells and chimes, and the sound of millions of bees humming. And we're moving up through these different levels: astral, ocean crashing; causal, water running down a brook; mental, bells, chimes, glass things pinging, humming of bees, a deeper humming sound than that, going into the etheric plane. And then we're moving up into the throat of this vortex, which is spinning clockwise. There's a golden white light spinning clockwise. It has a blue-green luminous energy around it, whirling around the outside. Now that is made of the lower energies of time and space, but it is also the hue. And it forms this construct so that we can pass into this golden white light and journey and bypass the lower planes of time and space. And as we shoot up through the opening on the other end, we're coming out into a very much larger universe. A pale blue luminosity everywhere as far as you can see. Turelian is just pointing downward. You look down and you see right through the throat of this vortex, all the way down through this channel. And there we are still hovering around Turelian, near Earth, polar ice caps, barren moon, and then it vanishes. And we are in this pale blue luminosity everywhere. This is the hue in a pure form. If you look closely at this pale blue light, there's a golden white light behind it, supporting it. There's no negative nature here, no buildings, no plants, no animals, no mountains, no rivers, nothing like that. So people think it is a void, empty of things. Yeah, it is, kind of. There are actually beings who live in this so-called empty void that most people never have the courage until they pass a certain test to see and understand. We're moving up through this vast expanse, which is as far as you can see in any direction. We're like a single luminous oval spaceship flying ever upward, following Satnam. And then you see him disappear far upward. And then we see a little point of white light, and this is the beginning of a long, white, luminous, diamond-like beach. We're approaching it. And we're looking down to see it extend as far as we can in each direction until it curves inward, meaning this luminous circle of white, diamond-like beach is on the outer circumference of a massive land. And it floats in another type of light just above the void. It takes a lot of luminosity and consciousness to travel through the void to get to the other side. That's what master teachers are for, in part. As we move over the top of the jungle trees, we won't take time to land on the beach this time. We go over the top of these jungle trees that are luminous and transparent. The greeting birds, these beautiful birds, they're not like birds on Earth. Foot long, long V-shaped split tails. Twin sets of wings, one above the other, like a dragonfly, but birds. Rainbow-colored feathers, thousands of colors, big blue eyes, look kind of like a blue jay. And they're hovering like a hummingbird beside us, looking at us, moving, flying backwards in the direction of Satnam while we're looking at them. They can fly backwards or forwards like a hummingbird. And above them is an Atma. And when you see the vocal cords or you hear the vocal cords of these birds talk to you, it's as clear as crystal. These body forms are not made of matter, energy, space, and time. They are projections of the Atma hovering above them. And these nervous systems of these bird bodies are far more sophisticated than an Earth human. They're just singing the hue, male and female voices on multiple levels to greet us. There's something that Satnam arranges. Kind of gift, really. First thing we experience in front of these birds is what it's like to respect all life in any form. It's the first thing we learn, first thing we discover when you step across the border into the Atma plane, the first pure realm of being above the void, beyond the void, higher than the void, deeper in eternity than the void. And we're moving over the top of these jungle trees, and these birds are still flying backwards, leading the way. Their eyes are looking right into your eyes. Remember, the body forms you're showing them looks like a perfect, flawless, beautiful woman. Except for me, I'm a man, so that's male. And all Satnam's doing is going down, and he's going to land on this circular 100-foot in diameter, kind of a white stone floor. In the distance, you can see a palatial estate along this diagonal snow-covered mountain range with blue stone. This is out in the garden, surrounded by 7 concentric circles of botanical plants and flowering trees and bushes. And these birds are there. There are creatures roaming through these trails between these 7 expanding concentric circles of garden, botanical paradise, surrounding this mountain. There's a fountain coming out of the center of this white stone floor. Has a statue of Satnam in it. 2 gold bracelets on his upper arms. Bronze skinned, bronze head bald, golden eyes not yellow. About 36-ish, but he appears ageless. White tunic dress from his waist down to his bare ankles. Bare-chested, perfectly formed, strongly built. And he's hovering there, with the Atma, who he is, hovering above this body form, pointing to this device. Because this statue of him is a doorway between the Atma plane and planes above here. One of the places it leads first is into a specially created parallel dimension between the top of the Atma plane and the beginning of the 6th plane. There are many planes above that. All the way to the sound and light, all the way to the ocean of sound and light, all the way to prime creator or source, through Agam Purusha's realm, one of a number of beings who run these different dimensions. This is not new to you, but it is new to you being awakened in the life you're running on earth now, is the Atma on this journey. So you bring back more awareness of this to the body when you return. It rubs off on us. In other words, we're moving through energy that has no negative nature at all. And we don't. So we gather more strength, we gather more light and sound to bring back with us to earth to help enlighten the body you have on earth that never learned any of this growing up at all. Because earth is not yet a normal planet. So up here, truth cannot be kept from you. There's no negative nature. You have none. And we are going to move up above this fountain. There's this pastel transparent golden white light coming down the top of the head of Satnam's statue. It goes down his hands, which are at his sides with the palms facing forward, pours right out the palms, fills this bowl, and then pours in a luminous golden white sheet of light around the outer edges and drops behind and into the ground behind a circular stone flat sitting seat that surrounds it with 12 intricately carved stone legs. Now we're going to move as a sphere of light, this oval sphere of light around Turelian, around us. And we're going to move up into that vortex until we're shot upward. Next thing we know, we're coming out into a much brighter cobalt blue atmosphere everywhere, like the most perfect blue, sunny, deep blue sky day. There's only one thing floating in this special place. A huge circular floating landmass surrounded by a luminous blue-green waves that are curling gently to break on this diamond white beach, and it continues to roll around the outer circumferences and never stops moving. It's one of the energy fields that support this place. Those energy fields are maintained by individual beings. In this case, master teachers and silent mentors. Remember, the silent mentors are the mechanics of creation. They hold everything in place. So as we approach this landmass, we suddenly shoot to the top of higher above the landmass. We're looking down in the center of it, and way out in the distance is this beach. And there are 6 snow-covered mountain peaks, blue stone with white snow, circling a basin. There is a blue-green luminous lake in the base between them, and a white stone-like, sand-like stone island in the center. There is a blue glass-like tower coming up from the outer circumference of this island. We can see right through it, and it comes up very high and comes to a flattened oval administration center and goes to a minaret point. We can see through the wall of this blue glass-like administration tower. And in the center of it is a 4-foot-high blue stone laced with gold, with polished rounded edges, and a sphere of light, transparent blue like the sky, and in it is a radiant, brighter cobalt blue star. There's a shaft of white golden light coming down into it from above, and it goes down through this pedestal, the center of this island, and goes out into the hollowed out interior of the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. The shaft of light goes from higher above, higher dimensions, comes down through this point, goes down into the hollowed out interior in a shaft of light right through the center of it, and continues out the bottom of the Hue Expansion Ray Academy, which looks like millions of amethyst crystals coming to a big one in the center. And then it's sent down into Satnam's realm, goes into one of these bigger fountains on the other side of his palatial estate through a triangular opening behind a throne-type chair. And then it continues into the lower worlds through the void. This is the way the universe is set up. Silent mentors manage and maintain this stuff. If you'll notice, as we approach this island, this whole group of us is moving down towards this blue glass administration tower. And then we find ourselves inside that flattened oval section, 2/3 of the way up the tower. There's another fountain in it. No statue of Satnam here. Just this white stone scallop thing with a shaft of white golden light coming down into it. So we find ourselves in a circle of beings, and Terrellian's hovering in the middle of this shaft of light, above the fountain. I'm hovering there with him. Master Ramun, Pelham, and Etta and Din and others are in a circle with all of us in this energy field. Now this is an administration area, which means as we're floating in this energy, we're getting an understanding of how to work with the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. It is vast. There are literally hundreds, if not several thousand, teaching facilities here. And from up above this point, we move way up above the point of the tower and look down on the 6 mountain peaks. You can see these white roadways that come out of horseshoe-shaped, perfectly carved tunnels. They have golden white walls, and these roadways are of a white stone. And they come out of the base of all 6 mountains, and they go straight to the shore, to that sandy beach, like the different spokes in a bicycle tire. And they all end on the beach, north, south, east, and west. Each of these roadways, like the western one we're looking at, will go from one of those openings and go straight as an arrow. And as it moves further towards the beach, to the right there's a clearing. To the left a little further on, another clearing. To the right, another clearing. To the left, another clearing. Dozens of them down this road till you get to that ocean shore. And the ocean's not water. These have teaching facilities in each one of these clearings down each roadway. So you get more of an understanding of how expansive the Hue Expansion Ray Academy is. Out in the distance, you can see, in this cobalt blue luminous light, there are no moons or planets or suns or stars here. They're not necessary, because everything here produces its own light. The jungle, the trees, the orchards, the things that are here, the roadways, everything's glowing, including all of us, including the atmosphere, and the land itself is fully charged with the hue. And it's charged with the hue coming from dimensions far above here. So we're literally bathing in an energy that has no negative nature. That means us as the Atma is bathing in it. It's turning on certain teardrops at different levels of Atma that have not either been used or been dormant for billions of years. Not millions, billions. There are silent mentor facilities out offshore, 12 of them surrounding the outer circumference of this huge floating landmass. They're clear single domes that almost cover the entire island. Some beautiful tropical luminous trees around it. 3 pyramids in each one, the back third, golden-sided, quartz-capped. And then you see a male and female hovering above each dome. Now these are silent mentors. You can see them from where we are, hovering above the Hue Expansionary Academy. They are couples. Above them is hovering an Atma, and you can see it. It's 4 times bigger than us, twice as many teardrop faculty layers in them than we have. And they're simply revealing to us, well, we're hovering as a group of beings around Turelian, above the Hue Expansionary Academy. Because we're not in that fountain anymore in the tower. We're experiencing 24 different silent mentors, male and female. 12 domes, male and female, hovering above each one. They maintain a certain kind of balance in this place. They also have teaching facilities north, south, east, and west from the central nexus of that blue-green luminous lake and that central island where the tower is. If you look down, like dividing a pizza with a cross in the middle of it, if you look at the northwestern quadrant, there's a roadway going right down the middle of the third of it. About 2/3 the way towards the coast, there's a right turn, and there's a teaching facility there. If you look at the northeastern quadrant, there's a road going right down the middle of it, and there's a right turn to a clearing with another silent mentor teaching facility. If you look southeastern, 2/3 the way down a roadway dividing the very middle of that quarter is another teaching facility to the right. And if you go down southwest, there's another one 2/3 of the way down in a clearing to the right. And there are 12 silent mentors that usually are stationed in each of these 4 locations, not just the domes out around the Hue Expansionary Academy. Now we find ourselves inside the hollowed out oval interior of the Hue Expansionary Academy. And Turelian is hovering in a beam of golden white light. It goes right up through that crystal in the star, in that crystal sphere, hovering above the 4-foot vertical pedestal. But it comes down into the hollowed out interior. Now Turelian's simply hovering in the middle of it as an example. Inside there are 12 white chairs facing away from Turelian towards the wall of the interior of this smooth, golden quartz-like surrounding environment. By the wall in front of each chair is a tree. A different tree is below each single silent mentor. There are 12 of these chairs in a circle, very far apart. And then there's a tree and a male standing above one. The next one has a female, the next one a male. They balance energies, as an example. They maintain the stability and stable nature of the Hue Expansionary Academy. They do not get fatigued. They do not get tired. They do not normally relate with individual Atmas. They don't teach individual Atmas like master teachers who have a golden heart. Normally they have nothing to do with us. But here, they do. And we, all of us, are in a circle around Turelian, hovering between the shaft of light moving through Turelian and the 12 silent mentors, hovering near these white leather-like chairs. So you find that that perfect physical form you are is sitting in one of those chairs. All 5 of us, including me, looking at either a male or a female silent mentor. They're looking at us. The energy is moving through this shaft of light, through Turelian, right through us, through the Atma hovering above the body in the chair. It's going up. There's a connection between the physical looking form you have and the physical looking form of the silent mentor. They have hair down to their shoulders, all different colors. Each one has a different color hair, different color gown. But they don't have facial features like you do, because when you look in their face, it's a white light. You can see levels upon levels of galaxies and planes and dimensions in their face, because that is how they perceive reality. They're sharing that with us. Above them is hovering this sphere 4 times bigger than we are. That's the real silent mentor. So there's this energy moving from the source itself down through us, through them, and vice versa. It's moving back and forth, constantly moving, never stops. What we're experiencing is a little bit of an expansion of consciousness to get to understand what silent mentors are like. This is the one place where we can intermingle with them. The Hue Expansion Ray Academy. Because this place was brought into creation for us to help co-create new ways of doing things, to retire the old experiment of good and evil and replace it with a wisdom and a movement of the flow of the omnipresent living life force itself in one direction. It now moves through all things and continues up these doorways like the center of our galaxy, right up that axis, and returns to the source, and it never stops moving. And we find ourselves suddenly out the northwestern roadway, to the right turn in a clearing. And what you see now is one of these blue glass-like spheres with a cobalt bright star in the middle of it, hovering above a 100-foot wide white stone floor, circular. 12 trees surround it. They look like giant weeping willow trees with broad spoon-shaped luminous blue-green leaves. Standing above each one, alternating male and female, is a silent mentor. And hovering above that is who they really are. Hovering above you, the body form you're showing them, is this beautiful Atma. Spherical. Just like them. Just not as large or as complex. So what they're doing is showing us potential. This is direct experience, so that we can begin to gather how we can evolve into something new. Something that didn't exist before. A cross between a master teacher and a silent mentor. Because there has to be a new administration to run things in a new way. It's not about destroying the lower worlds of time and space. That's been done several times before and been rebuilt, and we've all been put back in it. Didn't change anything. It's about keeping the creation, which is fine, planets and galaxies and suns and dimensions in place, but changing the consciousness of the beings who are supposed to be trustworthy co-creators and caretakers and custodians of world systems. We're supposed to be mentoring Atmas running other forms like a giraffe or a whale in the ocean. We're supposed to be examples for those creatures. People on Earth are quite the opposite. They are not living as examples in the way they should be. So we come to a place where there's no negative nature. And when we return, we begin to bring back with us a kind of a channel through us that comes through us for our benefit now, but also on its way for the benefit of others. This is the way we really are. Without fear, this is how we think, this is how we operate. Then we find ourselves inside a very large pyramid. It's a foot-thick golden quartz floor glowing. And there's a little Asian master standing in front of all of us. Trillian's much taller. He's standing behind us. This is Light C. Little Fu Manchu beard, a little maroon hat with symbols on it, little robe, about 5 foot 5 feet tall. Beautiful Atma hovering above this body form. He's showing you. This being has a body stationed in the etheric plane and was one of the first master teachers to volunteer to work here. So he works there. It doesn't have a body in the lower planes. And he works in the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. And he works with Satnam as well, of course. In the distance, in the middle of this pyramid, you can see a gigantic silver tree. Just massive. It's hard to describe because it's like a silver, golden, slightly blue light. Quite beautiful. And it has all these perfectly formed, huge branches that come out. And the roots go down into this gold quartz and disappear below. The top of it is right up to the very point of the inside of the pyramid. And there's a shaft of white golden light running down through the trunk, which is transparent. So we're going to move into the trunk of that tree, as Lightsey is asking us to move through it. Terrellian is leading the way with his two thumbs still up. And we move up the trunk of the tree. And the next instant, we find ourselves coming out into a field of energy that is fiery and red and orange and blue and green and always moving in and out of itself and disappearing. It would be very unsettling, except that we have no fear. And there's a massive, huge, white, luminous being with all these colors, just bright, approaching us. And this is Agam Purusha. This is the being who regulates the raw power of eternity. Passes through his being and he regulates it down through the lower planes and is constantly at work in this way. Such beings do not get tired or fatigued. They don't sleep, nothing like this. And there's another tree in this fiery light. We are getting permission from Agam Purushas to move a little further. And there's another tree much larger than the one where we left where Lightsey is, down in the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. And it has these silver needles. As we pass through it, we look in each individual needle, and there's a planet or a world or a sun represented in each one. And then we move into the trunk of this tree, and we are shot upward again. We're being brought up into a higher sound of a single flute note, way up into another arena. And now we're even brighter cobalt blue atmosphere everywhere. No moons, no planets, no suns, no stars. And in the center of it, floating there, turning like a galaxy, are these beings in severance spiral arms around a central void in the center with a white island. And hovering above it is this huge Atma-like thing. Many layers of colors of teardrops. It's much more massive than we are. This is what we would call source or prime creator. And it's humming to us. It's drawing us right through these beings. There's vast space between them. And the whole group of us is moving through these other beings. Until we come into this void and then we're shot and we suddenly find ourselves hovering above this, looks like a white, fine, luminous sand, a round circular island. And hovering in the center of it is Source. We immediately recognize we look exactly like it on a smaller scale. Not as many teardrop layers, but the same. And then we start moving through the individual faculties of Source or Prime Creator until we come into the white core of its being, and we are floating as white luminous spheres of light in the very center of creation here. And we hear a gracious welcome home. The sound of music here cannot be described in human terms, but it's pulsing through us. You hear a deep male, like a baritone voice, and then it has this feminine quality to it, and it welcomes us. And you realize that this is a nexus of all Atmas and all creation in the entire multidimensional universe. The Purushas of individual planes, everything is represented here. But it collectively creates a type of presence, a kind of consciousness that is not an individual like us. We are meant to be conscious, trustworthy co-creators with this. We are not supposed to worship it. We are supposed to know it by direct experience and respect it, and each other, and all life. So this is part of what we're bringing back from this journey. We find ourselves hovering above the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. We do not stay long in the source itself. It is too far removed from life on Earth. And if we stayed there very long in terms of time on Earth, physical body would cease to exist. So we visit it, and then we carry out our particular mission or journey, which is waking up in us. We find ourselves heading down the western roadway, hovering above it. Whole group of us. Turellian goes right to the beach and then stands offshore. It's like he's showing you he's standing up to his knees in ocean water. Blue-green luminous water. But it's not water. It's that energy that surrounds the Hue Expansion Ray Academy with that crashing ocean-like water on the beach that's always moving around the circle. And we find ourselves turning into the left, the last clearing, just before you reach the beach. And there are three structures here. A tall, thin, pyramid-like structure, kind of a blue, golden-sided structure. There's one on a tripod legs, looks like a sphere of blue, and then has a clear dome on top of it. And then there's a rectangular one. They're in a triangular formation, and has horizontal, convex, pointing outward, curved windows on the sides, on each end, and on top. And when you look into one of these, you can see the Milky Way galaxy in one. Another one will show you another galaxy. We look into the top curved dome on the top of this round sphere, and we see planet Xentronomon 1. And that is where the Xentronomos couple that are very tall, who you can see standing inside this sphere. Long silver hair, violet eyes, kind of ivory-colored skin, longer neck and torso and fingers. Just their hand on their chest, simply, respectfully acknowledging us. And then there's this pyramid building over to the left, the long, tall pyramid building. It has 3 white chairs in it, around a shaft of white golden light. Those can be sat in. You could all sit in them simultaneously here. The purpose of that is so you have a grounded understanding sitting in the chair with the Atma hovering above the physical form you can project here of what the Hue Expansion Ray exists to do. It exists to co-create new ways of doing things that are tested by Satnam below here. He knows how to test them in all the lower planes of time and space in a wave that comes back to screens down a hallway in his palatial estate. And he can determine what is true, necessary, and kind that we create. And if it's all three, then the beings in the upper worlds will implement that into creation. That's how we change creation, but from a place that has no negative nature in us or around us. And then you find yourself hovering in a circle around Turellian, back by Earth. The Earth doesn't look like it did when we left. It is Earth in the same place, no polar ice caps. Big continent over the equator from the left to the right hemisphere. Extends almost to the South Pole and almost to the North Pole. There's another continent 2/3 its side. You can see right through the planet. And there is a moon. Water and oxygen, atmosphere, and lakes and rivers and little dome cities turning on its axis, orbiting Earth and our sun. This is in the 3rd higher parallel dimension of the physical universe. This is how Earth looks there. You can see an upward curved, half-moon bay shaped, luminous green beach glowing, drawing us, calling to us. We find ourselves down on that planet, down on that continent, the big one, which is Lemuria or Mu. Atla's on the other side. Now this is a Lemuria or Mu or Atla that was never destroyed 100,000 years ago like it was in the Earth you're familiar with, because this isn't the same Earth. And it is a prototype. That's why the moon is alive and living and turning and moving. And we find ourselves wiggling our toes in this beautiful emerald green sand, glowing a foot above the sand in a big curved beach. And standing offshore, up to his knees, is Torellian, smiling. I'm hovering to his right side, smiling at you too, wiggling my fingers. And then Etta and Din appear, and they're wiggling their cute little fingers at you, just for fun. But it's the green energy in the sand, which is a gift from the Zientranamon, Zientranamus couple, standing on the beach with us. And it helps us remember all the lives we've lived that mean something in wisdom. We've lived for billions of years in the lower worlds of time and space. That's what the green energy does. So it moves up your torso, which is a pure energy, physical looking form, into the Atma and out to the green layer. And it turns on some of the teardrops in the green layer, the blue layer, a few other layers. And the energy moves through us for our benefit, and then through Torellian, and then onward, all the way down to the Earth you're familiar with, right through the poles, the gravitational fields of the planet. And we find ourselves hovering back above our bodies back on Earth. The man and woman are still there beside you from the Galactic Alliance. These are master teachers. They went with us. And then they disappear. The golden white light of the hue is moving down through you, the sphere you are near the ceiling. It's moving down through your body, out into that huge electromagnetic field that surrounds your body, and then it moves out into the Earth, into 3 pyramids that are stationed on Earth now, in fountains in them, 2 on the bottom of Earth's oceans, deepest oceans, 1 in a hollowed out interior in the Himalayas, and it goes out to a big pyramid stationed between 2 stable asteroids in the asteroid field that circles in the orbit of a planet between Mars and Jupiter. And then it moves out into space. Eventually it goes right up the white golden shaft of light that is the axis of the galaxy. That is an interdimensional doorway, by the way. And it moves up that transformer, let's put it that way, and it goes back to source, and it never stops moving. So as you open your eyes, you know it's moving through you for your benefit, but it's also moving through you onward for the benefit of others. When you're ready, open your eyes. You can turn on your microphones if you like. I'll ask you to do it, or you don't have to say anything or do anything unless you want to.
Hi. Thank you very much, Scott. Always wonderful experience. Yeah, I have a question anyway for the right now seems like we have a lot of clearance from the silent mentors in the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. So I'm wondering, is that the new innovation? Because from your previous clip when you took us for the journey, we have never been to this kind of clearance. Are they new?
Let me ask you, is this experience new for you?
Very new.
That's what each one is a little different, and each one explores something a little deeper every time. There are no limits on how deep this can go. It's kind of like a little bit of God realization. What does that mean? It means we begin to understand 2 things. Self-realization is awareness of what we are that's that, not this. God realization is what we know about that and how we co-create with Source. That's the beginning of what people call God realization. Most people don't have such experiences to really have either one of those. Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi do not take you there. They're states of serenity of being, true, but they don't cross the void. You just did. That's a big difference, very important. Any other questions from any of you? If you have one, Apas, you can ask it.
Yeah, I'm still thinking of it. Is there any question in my mind?
It's okay if there isn't one, as long as you know you had the experience. The main thing is when you play this back later, when Pari puts it on her YouTube channel, I'll put it on my YouTube channel too. This is a special journey, this one. Not a lot of people, but very important. Then when you play it back, and I always recommend this because it takes a lot of encouraging to get people to just lift a finger to wake themselves up, to do the work, which isn't hard. When you play it back, like tonight before you go to bed, send out the hue for about 10 minutes. Hue, you might change the volume. Hue, raise the tone, or just be one tone. And ask to be given or assisted to wake up further from the beings you met on the journey. Just ask. Don't worry about the outcome. They know what they're doing. And then try to tell yourself you will endeavor. Just try to only open one eye when you wake the body up in the morning. We're biscopular beings. Once the two eyes are open, we're locked into the atmosphere of Earth, and all that gets cut off generally. So if you leave one eye open, if you can do it, then you're going to be able to review everywhere you went when you're out of your body. And once you've run it through to the end, open your other eye and you'll remember it here. It's one thing I can suggest, and it takes some discipline and some work to do it, but you're capable of it. Then just have fun with that second time. You know, get a cup of tea, have a sandwich, play the recording back, go into part of it, take some notes, take a break, go to the bathroom, go to a restaurant, come back, play it again. But you're going to find something if you do it that way, like with childlike wonder. Then you're going to find that your intelligence, your IQ is much higher. And you're able to understand, almost like common sense, what journey was we went on. You'll be able to comprehend it better. And you'll see a lot more took place the second time than you remember right now. That's how direct experience, waking me up, knowing works. We're supposed to be knowers, not believers. We're supposed to be knowers. How can you believe something and know whether it's right or wrong? The opposite of faith and belief is doubt and fear. How do you get beyond those? You have to go into direct experience, into knowing. Because as Atmas, we're meant to know, not believe. The one way to gain back that knowing is through direct experience. It's the only way I know of. Any other questions?
I may have another question. When you mentioned about
Wait
closing
a minute.
one eye.
Wait a second. Let me close down this recording.